Hello, everyone. Good evening. I'm Ai, and welcome to Creating Space. So, this evening, we will be talking about how to adapt to change. And our guest for this evening is none other than one of our community members, Reiki master, teacher, and recently a vlogger, Mr. Marky Mendoza. So, let's welcome him. Hi,
Hello.
Marky.
Hello. Namaskaram, everyone. Namaskaram, Ai. Hello. Nice to be back. It's been a year. Diyos ko po.
Yes.
I'm so
So,
happy to be
kumusta
back and thank you.
naman?
Thank you for having me.
It's always a pleasure to have you with us. No, we always enjoy having you and hearing your wisdom and your life experiences. No, and yeah. So, kumusta? Anong pinagkakaabalahan mo recently?
Itong buhok ko primarily. Humaba na. No, naalala nyo from last year, grabe, sobrang ikli ng hair ko, but I decided to grow it. But kidding aside,
Hmm.
marami kasi I can recall kasi exactly last year we started with my fellow Reiki master si Pau De Vega. We started this podcast, The Consciousness Show, until just this year we transitioned to YouTube. And yun yung pinagkakabisihan namin mostly because we have to come up with contents weekly, and the
Hmm.
contents dapat lagi kaming may official episode every twice a week. Thursdays and Sundays we release that, and on Tuesdays we have live session. So yun yung pinagkakabisihan namin. And of course the weekend workshops na mas dumagdag uli for this year. Before we only teach twice or 2 weekends every month. Ngayon every weekend meron na kami. So it's really yun, yung
Wow.
sobrang jam pack yung schedule, but it's very fulfilling, and looking
Mhm.
forward to a more busy schedule.
Wow. And of course, kahit ako, no, inaabangan ko din yung mga posts mo palagi, yung sa Tarot Tuesdays and your topics. Very interesting. It's always interesting. So, and like you said, no, mas madami kayong churn out na content recently, and I'm sure most of these are coming from yung mga madalas niyong mapag-usapan, no, ng mga clients mo and mga students mo. So, yeah, so how has it been going for everyone around you na, I mean, based on the topic you've been posting, I feel na parang ang daming pinagdadaanan ng mga tao, no? And connected din yan sa topic natin ngayon. Kumusta naman
Correct.
sila din? Mhm.
Actually, kaya naman I love our topic then for tonight, because not just because it's really something that we have to be very mindful of, but again there are, especially touching on yung mga topics sa YouTube. You're right kasi mostly kung ano yung pinagdadaanan usually ng mga tao. It started like that because when we also patterned it the way we conceptualize the consciousness show, it's really touching
Mhm.
on lahat ng mga usual na pinagdadaanan natin that would not really just focus on the emotional side of things. Oftentimes kasi like recently, everybody's starting to become mindful and aware about our mental health. So we also tackle that. And syempre, iba-iba rin kasi tayo ng pinagdadaanan. And there are some who may be being very good in handling their emotional na life aspect and their mental life aspect. Pero there are also some that they may be needing to focus on the abundance or on the prosperity side or in the inner peace. And those are also topics that we want to make sure na we cater to those as well. And ang recently, we added another segment kasi parang I know isa sa yung mga topics na lalo na would focus on the subscribers and yung mga talagang na naka-tune in dun sa YouTube channel namin is the Dear Marky episode. So para siyang magpakailanman-ish, wherein they will send their own story, send it to us, and then we will give our unbiased na advice. And marami kami nakukuha. Actually, ang dami ko rin naka-prepare ngayon na i-feature namin upcoming, because we receive very good feedback, especially from the letter sender mismo, na appreciate niya yung because we really dedicate a complete episode na we provide the advice. Depende din, of course, on what they're going through. And we find it very fulfilling kasi these people, especially touching on their personal, of course hindi namin binabanggit to protect our yung mga nagsusulat in the one na nagsisend ng letters na yon, we don't provide kung sino yung nagsulat. We don't disclose that. Ang in-honor lang namin is the story, and then we advise them na, oh, here's ano na, ito na na-feature na po namin. I really like how this is starting to turn out. Kasi when people go to YouTube now, dun sa channel namin, bukod dun sa tarot readings, they also look forward to that. And recently, ang pinaka inaabangan din halos sa YouTube is yung weekly tarot reading, in which pati doon nakaka-relate din kasi yung mga nakaka-relate din yung mga subscribers namin. And it's really fulfilling in so many ways kasi when I check the comments, and when I check everyone commenting dun sa mga episodes, they really express how talagang it's helping. And that's the part that we really want to focus on eh. Lahat ng content namin, it will cater to their needs, it will cater to what they're going through, to assist them, to help them in so many ways. And then at the end of the day, we always want to make sure na everybody becomes empowered dun sa mga content namin.
Mhm. Definitely. And I've also noticed that even sa online healing community, no, and in general, Filipinos still listen or resonate more with, listening to or being inspired by stories of how other people overcame obstacles and hurdles, no? Kagaya ng like athletes or yung mga naging Miss Universe natin, di ba? And even just their friends and family. And so that's a wonderful way na you're trying to support people through Dear Marky and all the content you're creating, because it's really coming from personal experiences. And I'm sure a lot of your advice also came from from your personal experience, how you were able to overcome your personal obstacles and
Mm.
challenges. So, yeah.
Totoo yan. Kasi,
Can-
alam mo, specifically, lalo na every time na, especially on a Dear Marky episode, I always stress it na yung mga ways on how we provide the unbiased na
yeah.
guidance dun sa mga letter senders namin is because it's also coming from a place na alam namin, pinagdaanan, one way or another na nagre-resonate sa akin yung mga life challenges nila, because one way or another it may sound not exactly what happened, pero makaka-relate ka dun sa sitwasyon. So dun ko din, and I recall how did I do it before, and then yun din yung binibigay ko. But I always say, kasi mini-mention ko lagi ito dun sa YouTube channel namin na I like these opportunities na it's a real life story, us sharing these experiences and my own personal experiences as well. Kasi kahit yung mga personal experience ko, hindi ko tinatago yan. I really put it out there to for everybody to know na it's not just in the movies, or it's not just a fairy tale na when you hear stories na parang okay, na magsa-start na medyo may challenge, magsa-start na ang dami-daming crisis sa buhay, and then eventually it ends up like a happy ending, like more like a fairy tale. But when we hear stories that are very real, that are real life stories of people, and these are also ordinary people like me, like us, na ano talaga na going through life, no matter what it is. And then it has to just be known na somewhere, somehow, someone out there na nakaya, na naiahon yung sarili dun sa sitwasyon, and that it does not take to be like a fairy tale story for it to happen. It's a real life story na kaya mong iangat yung sarili mo sa ganung sitwasyon. And these people, they will resonate on that because it, again, kahit hindi naman sobrang eksakto yung pinagdadaanan, pero one way or another, pag alam nila there's a real life person that maybe ito yung pinagdadaanan nila and somehow medyo familiar yung sitwasyon sa kanila, and then they would know na kaya rin pala. And they would know na there really is just a process for you to go through. And when you go through it, and then you keep trusting the process, and then eventually, you'll see na kayang-kaya mo iangat yung sarili mo from any situation. That's why yun nga lagi yung ano namin yung catchphrase namin sa YouTube channel during every episode, lagi nasa dulo, is to always keep trusting a process, because we keep saying na whatever you go through, you have to understand that it is a process na once na naiangat mo yung sarili mo from that situation, you learn from it and you were able to rise above from that situation, it does not end there. It is possibly the start of a process, because after mo experience to. Of course, so long as you're alive, so long as you're here, you are meant to keep experiencing. And so the tools that you learn from those experiences, definitely, yun pa rin yung magagamit mo. Or even more so kung halimbawa, if you encounter something new and you feel like medyo iba na siya, hindi na siya yung katulad ng dati, medyo kumbaga nag-level up na yung sitwasyon, and then it opens you up with another opportunity of learning. And that's what you always say dun sa channel namin. And so far, we're really getting very, very good response. Slowly and surely, we're really giving our best para mas maging ano pa, realistic pa yung mga ano namin, yung mga stories and yung mga topics namin, touching on the topics na alam namin, pinagdadaanan ng lahat. And so we're always in the eye. Yung last nga na episode namin, we talked about excess baggages, which is really, no matter ano, medyo timeless yung ganung ano eh, medyo timeless yung ganung topic eh, because it's not really just gonna be, I mean, pre-pandemic, there are already, like myself included, marami tayong mga, especially in the past, mga pinagdaanan natin that not necessarily we were able to address, pwedeng na isang tabi lang natin, but not necessarily addressed, na in the future, it may, like a ticking time bomb, pwede siyang maging ganun. So how do you handle that? And I'm also, kasi ako, I also watch I also watch the episodes and parang, nasabi ko yun? Parang, nagaganon din ako minsan kapag pag pinanonood ko siya, I was like, nasabi ko pala, okay pala to ah. And then when you see, si Paolo kasi is really, really doing well in editing our videos because he really takes the time in editing them. And he also, alam mo naman sa YouTube, everything is on YouTube, and the way he also studied yung ano namin, yung how we're going to position yung mga episodes namin. Of course, he's been getting a lot of tips everywhere. And then nung pag pinanonood pa ko, ba, in fairness na dun sa ano ni Paolo, yung sa style niya. That's why Paolo may be, yun nga eh, parang not everybody knows na dalawa kami doon sa YouTube channel because ganun siya kasya. Ganun kasya si Paolo. Sabi, hindi, ikaw lang muna. Maybe in time, gumaganon lang siya. Unlike sa The Consciousness Show kasi when we were in the podcast, he's okay. I mean, you know, when you listen to the podcast, hindi mo naman makikita yung face. So medyo pagdating sa camera na, in fact, when initially when we were still doing yung The Consciousness Show, magkaka-transition kasi si Spotify na na video podcast, and I was telling him, let's prepare a video podcast next. He was like, gumagano siya, okay, but definitely mas comfortable kasi siya kapag pag voice lang. So nung finally we talked about transitioning to YouTube, and sabi niya, pero ikaw muna sa face. I was like, okay, sige, pero in time alam mo na. Sige. But right now, he's really enjoying. Ano ko naman, sobrang nabibilib ako sa lahat ng efforts niya. It's really, really, it's always a surprise, kumbaga. Pero lalo na yung last time ito, hindi namin, we chose to not edit it kasi yung our new family member, the cat, bigla siyang may special appearance siya bigla. Actually, naging highlight tuloy siya doon, when you see the comments in our current episode. Parang one subscriber commented na sabi niya, one of the best episodes. I was like, yeah, oo, kasi akala ko mahuhulog na yung camera ko dito. But very, very fulfilling, and we are really looking forward for more contents kasi ganyan naman yung inaabangan namin eh. Ang mostly what we all go through and what we find commonly, we find it very, very challenging to encounter and to handle. Yan yung mga gusto naming topics and yun yung mga gusto naming content that we keep sharing.
Oo nga, nakita ko din nga yan eh. Nung nakausap namin si Paolo din one time, parang dinescribe niya yung process, even yung sa consciousness show pa lang, na grabe yung preparation, tsaka yung sobrang talaga, kada topic, kada episode, grabe yung preparation, yung research behind it, and then talagang intentional lahat. And grabe, I honor and acknowledge how vulnerable you are in terms of everything you do, no, being a teacher and all this content you're creating. Kasi I feel na yun yung key, yun din yung key, di ba? You can say anything, pero if it's not coming from vulnerability, feeling ko hindi tumatagos or pag hindi galing sa personal experience.
They
Minsan
have to know
hindi
that we are human kasi talaga. Parang the people who are watching, they need to know that we are human. Na hindi ibig sabihin na we may be in front of the camera right now, sharing our finding ways. Kasi especially when we started, not just yung Reiki with Marky na YouTube channel, even when we started the podcast, we really focused on tips on how you're gonna rise above. It's really how every situation we will provide steps on how you will rise above from any particular situation or any life challenge. Yun yung talagang pinaka-role namin. And even on the first few topics and contents ng YouTube channel namin, it's really about giving them steps and tips on how to rise above. And it's really gonna be more effective, especially if they know it really came from your own experience. Kasi hindi siya yung parang when we encounter this in the future, parang maganda to. Or when we encounter this, pwedeng ito yung gawin mo. It has to be known na nagawa mo siya, napagdaanan mo siya, and because of those methods, tips, and the steps that you've taken, na-pull mo yung sarili mo from that situation and it definitely improved. Dapat dun mo mailalabas yung pinaka-ano niya, yung pinaka-wisdom niya. It's not really just how well you possession yung advice, it's really how vulnerable you are during that time and what did you do during those vulnerable times and how did it also become not just a form of wisdom, but eventually you'll realize that it's a blessing, especially kung topic you're adapting to change. And I like how when we were talking about what topic to discuss, kasi talaga it's really, and for me, uh, it's really something that we really have to go through. Yung any form of change primarily. And of course recently, and the reason why I also thought of this topic, because well, primarily like in our country right now, we are experiencing another, it's gonna be ECQ happening in a few days again. So parang from the time that we started the pandemic time last year, and then we were able to get our rhythm slowly and surely. Not just us, even the businesses, the economy, etc. We are trying to get our rhythm. But then again, certain things happen kasi talaga. And so, I really want na for, especially ang online healing community pa naman, ang daming listeners ng online healing community, and I'm pretty sure kahit na ang dami na natin mga speakers, leaders, and teachers who've been guesting here in Creating Space, and lalo na yung mga workshops na ng online healing community, when we talk about change, and I'm not sparing myself doon, myself included, hindi naman porke nagtuturo tayo, and I'm sure you know this, because galing tayo lagi doon. It's really part of our experience before tayo napunta dito sa ganitong posisyon. We really know na pagdadaanan natin lahat ng mga forms of changes na yan. And it also allows me na to prepare even more. And because of the changes then, na imagine na on universally or in our country, wala pa yun sa mga personal na mga natin, na changes that we all have to go through. Wala pa yung mga sa career natin, wala pa yung sa relationships natin, and imagine handling them all at the same time. Kaya naman this topic for me is really something na sabi ko, it's very timely. It's very timely for us to talk about it.
So, on that note, ano ba yung, syempre may common patterns, no? Tsaka common lessons usually na nakukuha natin in every challenge na we're able to surpass. Ano ba yung mga pwede mong ma-share na tips on how to best adapt to change?
Very good. And especially when I prepared yung tips that I will share for everybody, especially sa mga avid listeners ng online healing community, do not worry, yung tips and the steps that I will be providing today, hindi ito like parang geometry, ano tawag, yung algebra, yung mga ganun, hindi, okay? Hindi, medyo lang tayo, madali lang hindi natin pahihirapan yung sarili natin, because for me as well, when I want to solve any life challenge that I have in life, syempre gusto ko na, you know how it is, meron ka na nga life experience na ganyan, tapos even the resolution itself will be also a challenge. So paano mo pa lalong maiaangat yung sarili mo if the resolution itself, kahit yun pa lang thinking of it, processing it, nafe-feel mo na yung challenge lalo. So I want to make it very simple, realistic, and very, very achievable. Now, my very first tip for everybody, and especially for our avid listeners of Creating Space, our number one tip for us to adapt to change is, of course, number one, to anticipate. To anticipate. Why? why will we need to anticipate? And by the way, this is something that is very applicable, not just in one life aspect of your life. Because when we talk about change, it can be, meron sa personal life natin, us as a person, meron din sa us as a family member, as part of our group and our friends, part of the society, in our work and career, etc. And I'm telling you, kahit saang life aspect natin, change is always there. Why? Because we are all forms of energy. And if we define energy, energy is simply defined as anything and everything that has the potential to change. And so that means that no matter how well or how good you are in handling change, or in the opposite side, mangyayari at mangyayari siya. It is always bound to happen. And so for people who are mostly aware of it, that change is always about to happen, or one way or another, even tomorrow or even later, there can always be an opportunity of change. And the more you anticipate it, the more it allows you to prepare. And nalilesen yung impact natin. Nalilesen yung you know how it is, minsan kasi pag ano, it always, if it takes you by surprise, more often than not, it will shake you more. Ganun siya. So let this be a part of your preparation as the very first, and for me is the most important step. It's to always anticipate, most especially, most especially if you are already someone who's gotten your rhythm right na medyo komportable ka na with what you're doing, and pakinggan mo lalo yung sarili mo. You have to be very mindful with yourself, with your current situation, no matter which life aspect. Pag nararamdaman mo na kayang-kaya mo na, nababalanse mo na lahat ng activities mo, and you don't find it very challenging for you to go through all of your life aspects. Us as a career person, yung mga relationships that we need to maintain, our own self-growth, our emotional and mental life aspect, our spiritual life aspect, and syempre yung physical natin and our friends and family. If you find it na hindi ka na masyadong nahihirapan to balance or to find balance in everything, that is already your cue that you're starting to feel the level of comfort in these life aspects. Oftentimes, hindi rin siya pantay-pantay. There are times, halimbawa, when we talk about those life aspects that I've mentioned, there are times that you are still adjusting and adapting to some, but there are some aspects of your life na alam mong kayang-kaya na. Alam mong kayang-kaya mo na i-handle, or sanay na sanay ka na to handle it. Or also, there are also times na alam mo na which of your life aspects yung alam mong ipa-prioritize mo when change happens. Because, especially when we talk about career, our relationships as well, those are really at the top two spot, yung mga alam natin na kailangan natin to be very mindful about. And then also when those changes apply on those life aspects na alam mong very important and your priority, more often than not, kapag wala tayong preparation doon, we don't anticipate, and then that's when we always get yung impact masyadong, hala, it will shake us. Paano kung dalawa siya nagkasabay? Paano kung there are certain changes that happen in our career, and there are certain changes that we need to go through when it comes to our relationships as well? And pwede siyang it can also feel very imbalanced, especially if you're talking about these priorities where your focus is much needed. So how will you be so sure that as you go through these changes, you will always provide the best decision every time? Because you know how it is, when we go through our these changes, it's not just about how to adapt, but it always comes with which decisions now you need to apply with the changes that is happening. Hindi din siya mawawala. So when we anticipate it, so pakinggan natin yung sarili natin at our very first step. Pakinggan natin yung sarili natin. If it also helps, you know what, for me, I realized that journaling is really important then. When we talk about journaling, because it's like, sometimes kasi we have these mental notes, no? And na alam natin, comfortable natin when it comes to our mental notes. But if you have something to keep reminding you of our life, to keep the balance in our life, if it has to be something that you can write it either, oh, you can actually even just use your phone, or to put it in your organizer or what have you. Basta so long as you are always updated with your life aspects, para alam mo kung paano siya babalansehin. And it really pays well kapag nakikita mo na parang, okay, this part of my life, I just need to focus on this kasi the rest kayang-kaya natin. You have to keep helping yourself finding ways on how you will keep track of that. So after that, after our first step of anticipation, the next step naman natin is of course once the change is already asked about na ito na medyo kailangan na natin, ang tip number 2 is to acknowledge it. And acknowledging it just like any other thing is very very important kasi there are some of us, especially if the change that needs to happen is going, one, if it's abrupt, or number two, if it's really big change sa atin, na it can definitely, when we talk about routine, you have to start finding your routine again and you have to start from scratch. And there are really sets of changes that it has to be that way. Now, there's no other option for us to go through it but to really start from scratch. We have to acknowledge that it has to happen. After being presented with that opportunity, there are some of us may tend to feel a little in denial of it, and ako din, myself included before, when I was less mindful before, pag pinipresent sa akin yung change, well, for example, for work, and before, when I was still in a corporate setting, when I talk about my work, and that is really my priority, and I know kasi, when it comes to work, my patience is always needed. Kasi kumbaga, this is how I think about my career before. And especially nung and I was starting to climb the corporate ladder before, ang lagi ko sinasabi sa sarili ko, and in which, like, looking back, parang it sounds a little off, pero this is how I really look at things before. Sinasabi ko lagi sa sarili ko, well, I need to be very patient, extra patient, kasi doon ako bayad. Sabi ko, doon ako bayad eh. Binabayaran nila ako to be patient. Binabayaran nila ako to be the best person that I should be. When I handle my people, my staff, I'm paid to do that. So no matter what circumstances I have behind the scenes outside of work, when I step into work and into our office, I'm required to be the best person, and I'm supposed to be a role model for everybody. And how, I mean, looking at myself before, how can I implement change towards other people kung ako mismo, ako yung unang-unang hindi makakatanggap that these changes need to happen. And that dumating din ako sa time that changes halos every day, there are certain changes that I need to keep adapting to, in which I have to keep disseminating to all of my people before. And kasi handling these changes on your own is one, but handling other people all at the same time is another. And for me before, kaya pag uwi ko sa bahay, I really feel so drained. I really feel na I'm not physically my work, the type of work that I have before, hindi naman sobrang it entails na I need to parang mag-gym ako dun sa weight na gagawin ko, okay, mga certain activities, but it just feels so draining pag uwi, because not everything that I deal with in the office is really just about how your decision making and everything. You really have to absorb other people's energy as well, especially kapag when you deliver these changes to them. And more often than not, it's not always pleasant. Kasi parang, oh, ano na naman yan? O bakit niya? O kahapon lang meron, o ba't ngayon uli? Kailan matitigil? So you also, as you are handling people, you are also going to absorb these energies. And at the end of the day, pagtapos ng work mo, it's up to you on how you're gonna handle that on your own. And bukas uli, ganun siya. So what I really realized is that when I started acknowledging that more often than not, it's bound to happen. And I keep telling myself that when we get the level of comfort, expect that another form of change may happen. It can be sooner or later, or before you know it, talagang kailangan na siya. The more that you all accept it and acknowledge it, the more that it also helps you. Because denying it, wala din tayong, I realized din kasi, no, wala naman ako makukuha if I keep denying myself of the change that I'm supposed to go through. Because the least thing you would want to happen is maiwanan ka naman ng mga tao who are able to adapt. Because I'm telling you, especially in a work setup before, and I was with a lot of competitive people at work, and when you look around and everybody else is already adapting, and then you have this huge tendency to be left behind. And so there are so many experiences in life. May it be personal, may it be career, may it be in your relationships, or simply as your goals, dreams, and aspirations. those are the things that when change are being applied into these life aspects, and then you don't acknowledge them, when you look around you, you will see people adapting really well. And then it all turns out na parang, okay, so in short, and then ang tendency pa niyan, you'll be too hard on yourself. Bakit ba kasi hindi bakit ba hindi ko kaya? Bakit ba hindi ko matanggap na it has to change? Or I've experienced it before, bakit hindi ko siya magawa today? And there's the most challenging is yung mga self-talk natin sa sarili natin na talagang sometimes we become very critical sa sarili, and I've seen myself countless of times in that situation. Hindi siya masyadong nakakatulong lalo on myself because imagine um, facing these challenges, and I mean changes is one thing, pero actually going through it is really another. It's a totally different thing. The 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 need to adapt in the process that you have to go through, and the adjustment phase, that actually yung pinaka next na yung pinaka next na magiging pro tip ko eh. Kasi nga every single time na you're gonna be presented with change, before the way I go through change before, sige bahala na, o sige magbabago, o sige bahala na, hayaan mo na. But you know what I realize, if we really include planning, if you haven't included planning when you encounter change, it really is going to pay off well kapag you include that in. So that's our step number 3 or tip number 3. You have to plan. You have to plan on how you're going to go through the sets of changes. Because um, when you're able to acknowledge well that, okay, this is really going to happen and it's really bound to happen, what do we do with it? And what are the steps that I can take so that I can not necessarily smoothly go through it, because hindi natin mapapangako yan eh. Especially if it's gonna be something new. And ako din, kasi I know myself. Kumbaga, there may be people, I'm telling you, there are a lot of people who can adapt easily. And when they adapt as if nothing happens, parang medyo smooth ang transition. I'm telling you, there are really people like that. And there are also people who would be coming on the opposite direction, in which they really take the time to really get to know, not just because they're perfectionists or what, but because, any form of change, it needs adjustment. You really need to adapt to it through adjustments. And these adjustments, no matter which life aspect, talking about your career, that's another. Pero what if this is on your personal life? What if the changes that you have to go through entail how you live your life, or how you go through your everyday life, and then you have to go through those changes every time. Perfect example in our current situation, like in the next few days we're gonna be going through ECQ again. And what if you're already getting your rhythm? And what if you started feeling the excitement again, that at least little by little you get the freedom to at least step outside, not just for the essentials. Kasi dumating tayo sa point last year na yung mga essential na mga activities, yun lang ang mga kaya nating gawin. Very, very limited. And then slowly and surely, we are being introduced to how we are going to slowly go back to those other activities, like dining in. Of course, wala pa yung mga, like major ones like movies, or the other like travel. Everybody's most anticipated change sana is to have the perfect opportunity again for travel. And then again, slowly, you know how it is, no? Bumabalik na yung rhythm not just the Philippines, but around the world. You will see people, okay, getting the opportunity to travel again. And then we get another form of restriction. And then you tend to go back to your shell. And then, ending na naman, you're gonna be too hard on yourself again. And I've witnessed people like that. And I've seen people, and not just my friends and family. And kahit chinecheck ko rin yung sarili ko eh. That's why I recall last year, naalala mo tayo, Ai, when we keep doing our sessions every Sunday, isa yun sa mga topics din natin eh, when we go through our meditation time. What the topics that we do in our meditation time really caters to how the certain changes needed to be applied, and how do we help yung mga viewers natin sa online healing community. And imagine, after a year, now slowly we're getting our rhythm, and then it happens again. And then you would see social media. And you know how it is. Everybody's on social media, especially in the time of pandemic, because we're all here at home. More often than not, the work from home situation happened. Oh, that's another thing. When we talk about touching on the corporate, sorry, ang dami ko na nakukwento. Alam mo naman ako, Ai, sanay ka naman na sa akin. Alam mo na. But
Kaya
you know how it
lang,
is.
go!
You can you can remember when everybody discovered the beauty of work from home setting, that one, these huge businesses realize, oh, pwede pala. Kaya pala. Pwede naman pala na we can do a work from home setup. And then it's manageable din pala. And not just that, it's also at least medyo economical kasi you talk about syempre, the utilities that these companies need to pay for na medyo nabawasan because of, no one needs to go to the office. And then these changes, they see na okay, possible pa yan. But on the employees end, when they get to discover na okay, everything is happening in just one place. I'm gonna wake up one early morning. I will wake up. I will just have to fix myself, and then I'm gonna log into my laptop, start working, and then just a few inches away, alam mo yun, nandiyan na yung pets mo sa bahay, o kaya you have your family, you have your kids, and then you need to adjust. Parang okay, how do I do this? Na parang unlike before, that people realize that I've been there, like. When I was still in a corporate setting, there are some colleagues of mine before na sinasabi na, I'm going to resign na. I'm going to resign because I finally have an opportunity of a work from home situation. And we were like, wow, work from home? Parang ang ganda nun ah. Parang exciting yung feeling na, okay, work from home, as in really work from home, that really feels like, oh, medyo magaan yung pakinggan. And then when people experience that, what they realize is that the change that they need to go through is that how they're going to divide yung feeling nila na parang, okay, 9 to 5, I'm here, pero isang hakbang mo lang, oy, kwarto ko na pala to. And then, and then you still go through anything and everything that you have to go through work, yung mga isipin sa work, it's still just in one place. And then I heard stories about other my friends telling na parang sometimes I have to do something to really parang put myself out in the situation and to really get my mind off things, and for me to forget na the stress that I received at work today is the same place na dapat tutulugan ko. And then so these are the challenges that we all have to go through. So sabi ko nga, that's the reason why this topic, it may be it really goes through any form of life aspect. Maa-apply mo talaga yung certain itong mga tips, simple tips, very simple tips that we're going to share in any life aspect. Now, our tip number 4 is to always, this is very important, to anticipate the push and pull. And what do we mean by this? So, number 1 is the anticipation that change is going to happen. But when you're going through these changes now, when I say push and pull, it's really getting your rhythm. It's really about getting your rhythm wherein you're gonna go through a phase ng trial and error. Na, okay, you're gonna see what may work for you, and then you're gonna do it, and then you're gonna engage, and then eventually you'll see something or discover something. Medyo I need to revise my plan. I really feel like I need to do something else because I've tried this. I may not. It's not smooth enough. Then I have to. And do know as you go through these adjustment periods, kasi it always entails the trial and error can be painstaking at some, and especially if you are thinking about how you're still gonna be your best self, performing your best self, and at the same time that you are still needed to go through these changes. Na parang as if there is an expectation that no matter what kind of change is needed for you, may expectation sa'yo one way or another to eventually become good at it. And then oftentimes kasi, you will never know not unless you engage. You will never know until you fully do it yourself. And there are many discoveries that you will go through that, especially when you, even if, and sometimes yun nga, kasi the previous, our previous step is to really plan ahead. It can be a very good plan, but then again, when you realize, pag ginagawa mo na siya, oh gosh, oo nga, I may have overlooked something. Or you'd see na parang, okay, medyo my calculations are not that thorough pala. And then, ito yung experience ko. And then you have to go through it again. It's another thing that you need to anticipate. So in short, just like when we talk about planning and organizing our activities, it also pays well if we make sure that there's always contingency plans. Wag tayong when we go through our plans and when we go through our planning, rather, make sure that you also allow yourself to be more aware of the other possibilities as part of your anticipation. Kasi nga, anticipating it is one, going through it is another. And then, syempre, once nandun ka na, there are more discoveries na pwedeng mangyari sa'yo. So how are you gonna be more prepared for it? Kasi nga, ang ending niyan, the least thing you would want to happen, kasi ito lang naman pinagkakaingat-ingatan natin sa sarili natin. When we go through these changes, let's face it, talagang yung mga ano natin, yung mga self-talk natin, our conversations when we go through this sa sarili natin, there is a huge tendency that even our own self-expectations would always get the best of us. Alam mo yun, minsan, akala ko ba okay? Akala ko you're supposed to be good at this. Or kaya even if you don't have any like specific na expectations on your end, but then you go through it and then you feel disappointed. Why didn't I do this? Why do I have to go through this? And the least thing you would want to happen is to find yourself na parang um, quitting. And then you know na if I quit, or if I quit now, what's my guarantee? What's my guarantee that I'll be able to recover? If this is gonna be a situation in your career, if one huge change is needed of you and then hindi ka maka-adapt or you're trying to adapt but medyo na kinulang yung ating mga efforts on how we're gonna plan well, and because again it's also bound to happen. And then you find yourself parang mag-quit na lang kaya ako, but then again you go to a phase na mas uncertain ka, and that's the least thing that you would want to happen, especially in a time of pandemic. I know it's the best thing that you can give to yourself, not just the no, the assurance, kumbaga, the assurance. It's always something that we're all wanting to have. And and imagine that if you're going through these changes, if you have to go through this, tapos na feel mo yung push and pull, the trial and error, and then you discover things that may be possibly lacking or the things that you may have done differently. And then the least thing that you would want to experience is you'll be in the brink of talagang quitting na lang, or worse, of course, on a personal level, di ba? Baka feeling mo you're gonna be in a situation that you'd feel hopeless and helpless. And then there are some of us, especially again, we're gonna go through lockdown. What if we're all alone again? Because I've seen that. I have many friends na para din safe, and because we want to make sure that we're mindful of our health protocols, especially the independent na mga friends ko na hindi makauwi sa mga bahay nila just because they also need to protect their household. What if they have seniors? Like my mom is also a senior, and sa bahay ng mom ko, nandun yung mga pamangking ko na napakabata pa. And of course, you don't want to put them at risk as well. So in short, you're on so many levels. Let's say, for example, you're going through these changes, the push and pull, or the main change that needs to happen is on your career. But then again, when you talk about yung impact niyan sa sarili mo, and you need to be mindful of other people's health, and then iisipin mo pa siya. So the shoulder to cry on, o kaya yung parang sino yung pwede kong kausapin, and then you find yourself in a very alone or lonely na situation. You see how it can create a snowball. Only if we're able to also anticipate what can go wrong and what can go right as well as part of our anticipation and planning. Yung impact talaga niya, definitely, it really pays off really well. And now, para naman sa ating next step. So, yung next tip natin is to also, it also is very relatable dun sa natin, sa tip number 4, na anticipating the push and pull. Because our next step, this is tip number 5, is to honor your pace and be gentle with yourself. Because hindi ako dyan, myself included, hindi ako bulletproof dyan. And when I provide tips on how we're going to rise above any life challenges, I also look at myself kasi. Kung sa akin nangyari to, how was my pace? How did I go through it? Nagmadali ba ako? Or did I keep honoring my pace? And what is true is that what may be fast for me can be the opposite for other people, and vice versa. And you have to also recognize na hindi tayo pare-pareho ng timeline when it comes to handling these kinds of situations. Hindi tayo pare-pareho ng time period ng processing, ng acknowledging, and going through these changes and planning. And there are people who are very, very good in this. I'm telling you, like, titingnan pa lang nila yung isang situation, like, nabuo na nila. They don't need anything, everything is in their mind, nabuo na nila. But there are also people who need to take time. And not necessarily na hindi naman gumagalaw or what, but it's really it's the pace. They know that they're comfortable pace. Na if they go beyond that, beyond their own expectations, it can be more challenging for other people, myself included. And so I honor my pace. And I always say this, that an inch of progress is still progress, sa totoo lang. Because you can never celebrate these wins, these success stories without really honoring every inch of progress. Because let's face it can be an inch or maybe lesser than. Let's talk about a centimeter. That's still progress. Gumalaw ka pa din. And so the more that you become very gentle with yourself kasi, the more you assist yourself as you go through these changes. Kasi the least thing you would want to happen is for you to end up telling yourself na ano, na parang, okay, so ano ba talaga, why are you doing this sa sarili mo? Why do I allow this to happen? And this is what I always say again. You know what, externally, you can easily get that eh. You can easily, people's opinions and suggestions and how their perceptions would always come into play. Easily, you can get it. Talk about bashing, diba? Talk about other people's opinion. You can easily get it. And we're in a time and age where in social media, anyone can express their perceptions, their views, and opinions about anything and everything. And of course, that is their right. It's everybody's right. So in short, no one's really bulletproof of it. So it really is very, very, very important na for us as we go through this, how do you allow yourself to be ano lang na if you know your pace, then honor it and honor it as a form of success. Na there's a tendency din kasi as we go through this, sabi ko nga dati, especially in the corporate setting, yung you always tend to look at others talaga and compare yourself with others. And the more you get to compare, the more you're putting yourself in a more tendency for you to feel bad, especially if there are people who are doing way better than you are. Hindi rin maiiwasan, myself included. Napapatingin din ako, how are others doing? But before I use it to also motivate myself. I use it to motivate myself, but not all the time I can see that as a form of motivation. I see that every time na napapatingin ako in a form of insecurity, and then I go and I become too hard on myself because I get to compare myself directly kasi sabi ko nga, hindi tayo pare-pareho ng timeline and ng approach, level of comfort when it comes to adapting to change. And so the more that you get to know yourself, the more you know yourself, the more you know your pace, and the more you honor it, the more you're helping yourself. Kasi the least thing you would want to happen, especially, um, there are there are people who are very, very blessed to have the support externally within friends, colleagues, if this is in your career, friends and family, or life partner, or your family, there are people who may have all the support that they may need, emotional, mental, and the spiritual support, and the physical support, or what have you. But hindi lahat. And so if you belong to that experience na you may be needing to face this on your own, how are you going to go through this na parang ikaw mismo yung kalaban mo? Na ikaw mismo nagda-down sa sarili mo. And I'm telling you, you can easily get it anywhere and everywhere. Ibibigay mo pa sa sarili mo. And then you look at the situation, how well or do you think you're gonna go through this kung pati ikaw mismo yung unang-unang kalaban mo? And so you're not gonna tolerate yourself when it comes to this. You're not gonna tolerate. Of course, being honest is another. Always checking yourself according to what changes or what steps that you need to go through. Of course, you have to be honest with yourself. Okay, how am I? Do your self checks. How am I doing? And of course, when the more you become honest with yourself, the more that you get to monitor, the more that you get to appreciate these steps and the challenges that you have to go through by always honoring your pace, not tolerating, honoring it. Because again, alam mo, you can gauge yourself. You can definitely gauge yourself. But the least thing you would want to happen is to feel less motivated as you go through it. And finally, my very last step as you go through it, which also goes hand in hand with the previous step, is to also to celebrate your success, every inch of it. And kasi nga, we have to understand na as we go through these changes, and you know what, even leaders know this, the ones who implement these change or the people who need to implement these change, in a corporate setting, when I was going through my trainings before, it is known, it's part of our trainings that the leaders usually don't get the recognition. The leaders don't usually get the recognition when it comes to, halimbawa, when they did something good, because it's expected of them. because it's a part of their expectations that you should be able to do it, or you should be the one becoming the role model of this, or at least you walk the talk, or at least it's if you're someone out there, I mean up there, it is really part of your role. So in short, uh, parang whether you've given your best or not, well, it's expected. Well, dapat alam na namin you're supposed to give that. It's your fair share. But these people are less, kumbaga, given a little pat on the back. And so, if you go through this, if you go through these steps and you're being able to adapt well using these tips, simple tips, and then every inch of progress you're able to do it, you anticipate the push and pull, and then you allow these experiences to also keep your feet on the ground and celebrate these successes. Because sabi ko nga, if elsewhere hindi mo nakukuha yung right motivation or the right push and for the right drive and passion for you to feel supported, pag hindi mo pa binigay yan sa sarili mo, you will always find yourself na parang lagi mong tinatrabaho lahat. Na even the happiness part, feeling the happiness as you go through this, and the fulfillment, parang dinedeprive mo na yung sarili mo niyan. And the more you go through this, lagi pansin mo, laging ending yan, you become very critical sa sarili. And because exactly the way it happens before tayo matulog, these are the things that we process. How well did I do today? And then, tulog ko na lang to. Bahala na bukas. And then, but when we get to celebrate our success, those really, and by the way, you celebrate it without bias and just do not measure. In a time in age kasi na parang when we always tend to measure the success, now we always tend to consider one as a blessing if it's life changing. If it's money that's worth 6 digit, that's a blessing. And anything in lower than that, well, thank you, but I think I just deserve it. But we don't get to just appreciate it na as na every inch of it, no matter if it's monetary or not, or as simple as a smile from a stranger na na nakasalubong mo lang dyan sa daan. These are very valuable wins sa totoo lang. Because imagine, sabi ko nga and why did I even include even just a smile from a stranger na nadaanan mo lang naman, and why did I also consider that as a win? Imagine you going through this. Imagine what if you need to go through many forms of changes as a person, and then you find it very challenging as you process this alone, and then someone, just a random person, offered you a smile, and then you know what, diba? You have nothing as a smile as well, and then you suddenly you'd feel like, oh, well, imagine that. I don't even know the person. The person is really just a stranger, but he offered a smile, and that made me feel good. And then, if you also celebrate that, it also allows you to find more joy and happiness with what you do. And those little tiny gestures of kindness and love and happiness, I'm telling you, it really is it's very valuable. And so when you go through these six tips, of course, another, when you complete this, is to always go back to square one and to anticipate again, because it's always bound to happen. No matter which life aspect you're gonna go through, it is always bound to happen. And the more that we include these steps into our everyday life, applying it slowly and surely, you also give yourself that opportunity in learning. You also allow yourself to keep learning and to allow more wisdom to come into your life. And I can never express how this is something that constantly I keep reminding myself. Kasi nga, you can never be too comfortable, because the more that you put yourself in a comfortable phase, and then pag nasanay ka na uli, and then you feel like, oh, medyo feeling ko naman wala na masyadong mangyayari muna, and then it hits you again. And then the least thing you would want to happen is to start from scratch, from the very scratch, and then you'd find yourself, oh my gosh, what happened again? And I feel like this is worse. And then the least thing you would want to happen is to always find mas magiging critical ka sa sarili. Oh, akala ko okay ka na. I thought you're doing well. And then here you are again. And then you're gonna be disappointed with yourself again. And again, sa sarili mo pa lang yun. And there are again others around you that can easily give that freely. And then how do you find the happiness and the fulfillment if you also parang we tend to become very complacent. And so I keep telling myself that every time. And so as I shared these 6 tips, and again, these are just fairly easy, very easy tips, and very easy na to go through these tips that I've given. I want everybody to be reminded na no matter which life aspect in life, lalabas at lalabas yung tips na to. Magagamit at magagamit yung tips na to. And I've mentioned these tips and I formulated these tips kasi this is also a way for me to prepare. And para pag may there really is a need for me to adapt or to go through certain changes, at least I know if I'm going through this, I know may mapupulot ako. And I look at it as if it's a skill that you gain, and eventually this wisdom will turn into blessings. And look at how well you will become. But you know what? This is not yet done, because if you master this, if you get to master this, your next goal is to keep sharing it to others, because eventually you will become the inspiration of others. Eventually your story, again, a real life person, not just a Hollywood movie or a local movie or mga Korean novela na napakaganda ng mga plot twist sa mga Korean novela natin, di ba? Hindi siya fictional na story, a real life story that was able to pull themselves out from one situation and to improve it. Our next goal is to keep inspiring others. I may be saying this right now, and to all the listeners of Online Healing Community, I may be sharing these now, but I'm telling you, I may be I may be sharing this as a way to inspire others. This can be my story, but then again, I still consider it that any moment I still need to go through these steps. Any moment, I still need to be very mindful of these steps and to take it to heart and to make sure that I always anticipate, go through it, repeat, and make myself comfortable. When you make yourself very comfortable into these changes, and then they're gonna be limitless. And then it's really time for you to keep inspiring others.
Yes. Wow. Well said. So it's definitely like you said, no, it doesn't mean na yeah, you're sharing about these guideposts na parang kumbaga master and perfect na mo na rin ito.
Hindi
Ano,
talaga.
parang self-reminder din ito, no?
Mm-hmm.
You feel through through all these every time merong challenge, no? And you mentioned six guideposts and tips, no? So just to let's just let it sink in first with everyone who's watching now, and we'll take a short break, and then when we get back, we'll check our comments kasi I think may question din doon,
Mm.
then we'll wrap in a bit then. Okay?
Oh, sure.
So
Sure.
guys, stay
So
tuned,
can this
and
help people
we'll
stay calm and spread calm at this time? And if we can just really lighten the load of everybody, and lalo na with the social distancing that's being done, we kind of feel alone. Even now, we're still on lockdown. And I just want people to know that, guys, you're not alone. Kaya natin to. Together, we can do this. That's why we have programs every Tuesday, every Thursday. There's a class or a workshop which is free to the community so everybody can come together.
Here are our programs on personal growth and healing for you.
All right, we're back. So just a recap, no? Marky mentioned six tips to help us adapt to change. So first, anticipate change. Second, acknowledge it as it happens. Third is plan. Of course, that's the best way to prepare for any eventuality and situations like this, pandemic disruptions and yeah, parang talagang immediate or biglaan na changes, no? And then fourth, anticipate the experience of course there's like a dynamic of push and pull, and then you're trying to adjust and you're trying to resist the change, but eventually you need to really adapt. And then fifth is respect and honor your pace. And lastly, of course, celebrate your wins and successes. So, Marky, ako personal takeaway ko, no, going through all these tips and guideposts, I feel na it takes a lot of foresight, flexibility, self compassion, compassion towards the self in order for us to successfully transcend or um, deal with all these challenges and adapt very well to them. And then you mentioned the importance of journaling. I think part of that is really being mindful and intentional with everything we do. And lastly, I love the your reminder or your emphasis on the point na even you, ikaw din, pinagdadaanan mo pa rin ito. So, of course, that also goes back to your reminder to really have compassion towards the self, no? Kasi yun nga yung, I can resonate with that tendency, yung parang pag, when something happens, na ito na naman, akala ko ba natuto na ako or something. Pero, di ba, if we really look at it, although it seems similar to what we experienced previously, mayroong something different this time. So, hindi lang natin minsan nanonotice may incremental changes nga. Like you said, even the littlest change or improvement is, tama ba? Ano yung sinabi mo? Yung pinakamaliit na pagbabago is really a big deal na.
Sa
So,
totoo lang.
yun, before I go back to you for your final words and for us to wrap up, no, let's just look at the comments because I remember seeing a question. So we would like to, ayan, so from Billy Joy Torres, in the process of certain changes and growth, you lose people, you get pressured of the things around you getting huge. You seem to lose track of who you really are. How do we deal with overwhelming changes? Wow, that's a good question.
Oh, para tuloy ako nasa Miss Universe to answer that,
Oh,
no? Pero you know
30
what? I
seconds.
really...
Biglang
Kaya, and you know what? Sa totoo lang, especially and kay Billy Joy na Torres who has asked this question, first of all, I really feel that you may also be going through certain changes that you need to adapt to. Kaya rin natanong mo yan. And very specific, no? Because you may tend to lose people. Alam mo, I want to tell you that if part of our tips is to honor and respect ourselves equally, we should also give that to the other people and especially to the people around us equally. Kasi nga, and I like the reminder talaga ni Ai kanina about being compassion. And we talk about compassion sa sarili, but also compassion towards all forms of life around us as well is equally needed and equally part of our anticipation as well. One thing is for sure, what um how you go through these changes, how you handle them, and how you experience them is perfectly unique and authentic sa bawat isa sa atin. Now, and there are also times that, you know what, I've also experienced them before na parang when, like na experience ko lang naman sa office before na when people have to go through this huge change, and you're able to adapt smoothly. And then people tend to question why you're able to adapt, why you're able to rise above. Alam mo, it happens. And I've experienced that. Parang, bakit okay ka lang? I mean, bakit okay ka lang? And honestly, even the pandemic time, and upon having our mga conversations with our fellow leaders, and alam mo ay yung mga mga after meditation natin, we also talk about anything and everything under the sun. May mga isa sa mga napag-uusapan natin is when that we're okay na everybody out there, they have their own ways on how they adapt to it or possibly how they go through it. But when people ask me, I'm okay. And coming from a situation na I'm very extroverted and I really enjoy my time outside, na parang ako mismo yung maghahanap ako ng time, and for me to finally just do anything and everything at home na hindi lumalabas, and I find so much fulfillment. I found a deeper connection to myself through meditation, yung mga ganyan. And people, parang sometimes you have that guilty feeling na parang, everybody else is panicking but you're not, yung ganon. I also really just go back to this, especially dun sa situation, dun sa specifically sinabi ni Joy, that especially towards other people, the impact towards other people. Primarily, it's always about honoring them as well, providing more love and respect towards yourself primarily, but towards others as well, and to be extra forgiving, especially when you really are needing to go through this change and you know that these changes you need to take action on your own. Or if this has to be a question if you're going to honor yourself or honor others. This is really where na nagkakatalo yung mga ganyang sitwasyon na parang kapag it's a choice between you or others na in which guilt will always be experienced. Laging nakakasama yun, hindi maiiwasan. But I'm telling you, when you understand that yes, no matter how others will take it, no matter how others will experience or at least perceive your own way of adapting through change, be forgiving. Be forgiving. People may or may not understand, but so long as your intentions will speak the truth that you are honoring this, especially when you go through the steps, the easy steps that you've gone through, and you know na hindi ka naman nangaapak ng ibang tao, it was not part of your intention, and a part of your focus is to really go through the change by means of really making sure na these steps you're also honoring yourself, you're respecting yourself and others, and then you trust that because eventually one way or another these people who may initially not see the understanding or who may not necessarily grasp it, don't think that they will never grasp it or don't think they will not get to understand the way you approach this certain change or to adapt to these changes. Remember, kung tayo may pinagdadaanan individually, possibly lahat din, people around you as well. And the least thing you would want to happen is parang ikaw naman yung you'll be in their shoes na ikaw naman magja-judge. Ay, kaya pala siya ganyan eh. Kaya pala siya ganyan kasi ganyan yung life niya. Kaya pala siya ganyan kasi ganyan yung na-experience sa life niya. And then think of how you received it initially. The least thing you would want to happen is to turn tables and then you become that person na hindi less forgiving and then may halo pa na judgment. In which if you're gonna take a step back, marirealize mo, I would have just responded with love and respect. And so, those two things, when you apply love and respect in every situation as well, it also allows you to develop more compassion sa sarili and lalo din sa ibang tao. So, may say, especially kay Billy na, I'm pretty sure you may be going through certain experiences in your life. Be very gentle sa sarili, ha? Na as you go through, lalo na yung tips, kapag isinapuso natin yung tips na yon, my very important tip is that as you go through it and as you follow these easy tips, be gentle sa sarili. Okay? Dapat kakampi lagi ang sarili natin. And always honor, love, and respect yourself and others.
Gusto ko yun. Dapat lagi nating kakampi ang sarili.
Oo, kasi sabi ko nga mas madali natin makuha yan externally. And people can easily air out their opinions, suggestions, and their perceptions towards us. Pero ang mahalaga kasi is how we really are inside.
True. So, meron pa ba tayong ibang comments, questions, or insights from our audience, our friends?
Ay,
Yeah,
thank
very
you naman kay
helpful.
Billy Joy.
Mapapa-reflect once again. Thank you, Billy Joy. And I've seen others comment earlier din na, hello, hello, happy to be, ayan, Shirley Beth, hello, happy to be here. And then, in general, hello.
Hello
Kumusta?
din sa mga listeners natin ngayon.
Ayan, thank you for joining us tonight and for contributing your energies, of course. Danny Ong says, Om Shanti.
Yun pala yung Om Shanti.
OS, Om Shanti. Dapat laging kakampi ang sarili. Tama. Sige. So, on that note, para makakuha ng mas marami pang tips kung paano mag-express ng love para laging kakampi ang sarili. Marky, imbitahan mo naman ang ating mga friends na nakikinig sa iyong mga, mga shows and social media account.
I-manifest
Shows.
natin yung show. Yeah. Kapuso tayo eh. Alam mo na kay Jenny Lynn.
Yes.
Yes. So sa lahat po ng listeners ng online healing community and syempre sa creating space na napakadaming avid listeners and viewers natin lagi, I would like to invite everybody, if na-enjoy niyo po yung ating episode talaga, no? Yung natin, yung creating space natin for tonight, I would invite everybody to primarily my social media. It's already flashed there. My Facebook page and Instagram account is at Everyday Reiki with Marky. And we also have a YouTube channel. I am sharing this with my fellow Reiki master, Pau de Vega. It's called Reiki with Marky in our YouTube. And kung na-enjoy nyo po yung mga tips na yan, we've created many contents that would, this is also just catering to one topic, adapting to change. But we also, in our YouTube content, we share tips on how to rise above on anything that touches on your emotions. Or if you're also someone who's wanting to focus on abundance and prosperity, meditation, we teach there. We also give many, on a weekly basis, we also share, kasi I'm also a tarot reader. Every Sunday we have an episode there that we also provide the weekly tarot reading na episode, in which every day, like the weather, meron tayong mga daily energies that will also guide us in preparation din. Parang kanina, anticipation. When we anticipate the energy, like anticipating the weather, the impact becomes lesser talaga. And hindi lang kasi in that episode ng tarot reading, we just don't provide you if there are warnings, we also anticipate blessings. So the more we become very motivated and excited, syempre dapat balance lang din tayo. Now, every Tuesday night, that's why I'm happy na Tuesday, no? Dami kong energy, because every Tuesday, if you also would want to experience free tarot reading naman, may I invite everybody to also join us in more than an hour na from now. It's 9 p.m. every Tuesday night. It's called Tarot Tuesdays in our Facebook page. It's at Everyday Reiki with Marky. We provide free tarot readings for everybody. So if you have questions, anything about your career, love, or syempre sa health natin, I freely answer all of those questions. Mag-join lang po tayo sa live natin. And definitely, marami tayong fun may experience doon. Mas candid ako doon sa yeah. Kasi medyo hindi tayo masyadong candid dito, alam mo na.
Pwede. Pero natawa ako kasi naalala ko yung yung tarot reading mo sa akin before.
Ikaw naman, binuking mo naman sa binuking mo. Sabi ko nga, confidential dapat.
Hindi ko naman sinabi ano yung reading mo. Okay lang yun. Masaya yun. Masaya yung sessions na yun. So, please do join Marky session later if you're free and interested. So, it's definitely fun and enlightening.
Ay, thank you
So,
naman.
To wrap up our session this evening, could you lead us, as always, no, ang ating nakasanayan sa creating space? Please lead us through a short meditation or prayer.
Sige.
To wrap
Sige.
up our session.
I will be very happy to lead everybody in a guided meditation and also in a form of prayer na rin, all at the same time, to also prepare us. So may I invite everybody, no matter where you are right now, either you're sitting on a chair or maybe sitting on the floor like I am, just make sure that you relax your spine, make sure that it's erect, and then your shoulders are relaxed. And you may find it comfortable if you also are into mudras. I'm just really happy using the Gasho meditation pose. Or just make sure that your eyes are also very closed. So join me in our meditation. And before we go through our guided meditation, to prepare our mind, body, and soul, let us all take 3 deep breaths. Inhale, first one. And exhale. Inhale. And exhale. Lastly, inhale. And exhale. As our mind, body, and soul are fully ready for our meditation, let us all first put ourselves in a very grateful state. So in our mind, or either we're saying it aloud or in our mind, we all start with thank you. Thank God for these opportunities. Thank God for these experiences. And lastly, to thank yourself for allowing these experiences to become better, to shape the person that you are, that is all meant for greatness. And to trust that you are meant to go through this, not because of anything else, but because you are being prepared for greater things. And as you thank yourself, you can also visualize your past experiences. I want you to take yourself back into a journey wherein you are already celebrating that milestone, wherein you're able to pull yourself from one challenging situation and you were able to make it. I want you to remind yourself and allow yourself to go back to that instance or that memory wherein you're able to make it and then you're able to do well. I want you to also remember and be in touch on how happy and fulfilled you are during that time. That feeling, that experience may be in the past, but that is a solid fact and a solid memory for you to believe that you can do it, that you are someone who's able to experience it and you're able to make it and you're able to learn. Breathing in and breathing out. As we've gone through our episode for tonight, as we hold space for each other, allowing these topics of adapting to change, let these experiences prepare us even more, anticipate how we're going through these changes, to also anticipate that this will allow us to become better in the future. Breathing in and breathing out. And as you are reminded of that beautiful breath that you have, that you're able to inhale and then to exhale, it allows you to be reminded of how human you are and that you exist. And that as human beings, you deserve these experiences. Both the success and the failures. We all deserve that because we all deserve to know how it feels. To know how blessing feels and to know how failures would also feel so that we can compare the difference. And so we know how to focus, to know what our goals are, and to know how we're going to get there. Breathing in and breathing out. Let us allow a moment of silence and allow this for you to keep going through other experiences and other memories. Allow yourself to remember those ups and downs and you're able to make it. And I want you to visualize that in the future, that you can easily look back all of your experiences and then you can easily tell yourself that you made it and then you're able to do well. Let's honor silence, and after a short while, we will also end with another form of gratitude. In that very brief yet so beautiful silence, you discover that again, in the abundance of everything, God is there, but also in the absence of the nothingness, God is also there. Trust that these experiences are meant for us because we are all meant to learn, we are all meant to gain not just the experience, but the wisdom that shall turn into blessings. So as we put our meditation into close, again, thank yourself. Thank yourself for allowing all experiences, all experiences to be the best teacher, your experiences to be the best teacher. Breathing in and breathing out. Wiggle your toes, wiggle your fingers, Stretch out your necks a little. And when you're ready, slowly and gently, you may open your eyes. Namaskaram.
Namaskaram. And okay, Mitsu said he gave me a reading years before and
Wow.
was accurate. O,
Sali ka uli
diba?
mamaya kung ganun.
Join na at 9 p.m. So thank you so much, Marky. And I love as you mentioned, no, you end your podcasts and your videos with the reminder to always trust the process. That was my takeaway here during the meditation and the entire session. So it's always a pleasure and a joy to be with you, Marky. And hindi na ako pumasok in the middle of your talk kasi feeling ko nasa Dharma class ako.
Ah,
Ang ganda talaga palagi, no? I really appreciate your every session that you handle. And Tina says, thank you, excited to join later. Oh, may continuation dun sa kabila.
kaya nga. Thank you
Yan.
naman. I'll see you later. Mas masaya yun. Marami tayong
Yes.
chismis na sa life ko. Chinismis yung life.
Mga chismis na to. So, ayun, everyone, once again, thank you so much for joining us. And for those who will watch this later, we hope you will have a wonderful time learning and reflecting with us throughout this session. And also check out our other sessions on creating space. So this is creating space happens every Tuesday evening, 6:30 to 7:30. So hope you can join us again next week. So you will see Karen again. And yeah, as always, um, please do not hesitate to contact us on Online Healing Community if you need support, especially now during these trying times for, especially with the upcoming ECQ, no? So we're just here for you and feel free to contact us and join our events. And of course, to check out and watch Marky's sessions or episodes. Yes, manifest natin.
Oo
Marky's
nga.
episodes. Sige. So, yeah, thank you so much again, Marky, and everyone. I hope you have a very restful evening and stay safe. See you again next time. Bye-bye.
Salamat. Magandang gabi.